another edition of the Loudwire podcast. I'm Joe, and Graham is not here. Graham is actually on vacation. He's down in Africa playing with a bunch of animals on an animal rehabilitation reserve or something like that. Either way, he's there right now, and I saw pictures of him playing with petting and caring for a rhino, a little rhinoceros. Graham was petting him, and he looked to be having a lot of fun. But he missed out on a lot of fun here too, because we have a great guest in this episode. Not that we've ever had a bad guest. And it's Rex Brown from Pantera, and also photographer Joe Giron, who took all the pictures in the Vulgar display of Pantera photo book that's out now. So we're going to talk a lot about that. There's some really cool stuff in here, and one of my favorite things is that it actually dives back into the early days of Pantera, all the way back to the mid-'80s when they were a glam band. If you thought Cowboys from Hell was their first album, it's not. There's 4 more before that. It's surprising some people don't realize that, even though the internet exists and they could just Google this stuff. But anyway, there's some really cool pictures in there. It shows a lot of personality in the band and not very much text whatsoever accompanying it. It really is a photo book in the truest sense. And sometimes what you're missing with the text is maybe a little bit of story, and that's part of the wonder and the mystery of it. But you're going to find out some things about the story behind some of these pictures here, as Rex and Joe are going to explain. We take a look at a picture of Rex looking a little bit distant from the band. Kind of interesting, considering he was more reclusive, at least comparatively, than everyone else. Another picture of them with White Zombie. Lots of cool things in there. Some really cool stories. Involves prosthetic legs, and then we've got a special surprise for you at the end of the podcast, so make sure that you listen all the way through. But before the end, you're going to hear the Rocker versus Writer. As you know by now, if you're a first-time listener, Rocker versus Writer is where we take some of the most commonly debated topics in metal, so it's a lot of fun, and it's just some fun little discussion about the music that we all love. So today's topic is going to be the best rock or metal bassist of all time. Rex takes his favorite, Geezer Butler, Black Sabbath. Joe took Geddy Lee of Rush. He said, though, if he's going on the metal side, then he's going to pick Rex. So no surprise there. I'm happy he didn't, because I really don't want to argue against Rex. That would kind of suck. And I took, if you've been listening before, no surprise here, Steve Harris, Iron Maiden. Huge Iron Maiden fan. So get ready. This is a really fun one with Rex Brown, Pantera. Joe Giron took all the pictures in the Vulgar display of Pantera photo book. So get ready to sit down and shout. It's the Loudwire podcast. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of the Loudwire podcast. Have 2 awesome guests here today. We've got Rex Brown of Pantera.
Hello.
And Joe Giron, who took all the pictures in the wonderful photo book, A Vulgar Display of Pantera, which we're going to be talking about here.
You saying your name right?
Hello. He did.
Joe Giron.
Giron.
Got the R's rolling there.
Giron.
Name's Haron.
Giron. All right. So, now, Joe, you've known the guys in Pantera for a long time, dating all the way back to the mid-'80s. Correct. What was your first encounter with all the guys like?
Shot at Jack.
No, we didn't actually do that. It was the funny thing about Pantera was if there was any strangers in the area, they always had their radar up. But once you got into that inner circle, you know, they opened, they let you in with open arms. And I was actually there in shooting for the newspaper in Fort Worth, Texas, the Star Telegram. They were doing a story on a local band trying to make it on the sort of national and international stage. And so I was allowed backstage to kind of shoot prep and getting warmed up, getting ready to hit the stage there at the Bronco Bowl. So they were kind of looking at me with one eye open and one eye kind of looking the other way. And so there wasn't a lot of personal interaction other than me shooting some pictures, kind of fly on the wall type of stuff. It's only after the newspaper ran the article and their manager called me up to say, hey, we'd like you to work with us more, that more interaction happened. And, and you know, I started getting more personal with them and doing more photo shoots and stuff like that. But the first interaction was just kind of more, you know, professional in nature. It became very much more personal after that.
A little bit. Everybody's on each side of the fence there.
Yeah.
Now, Rex, what was a quality about Joe that clicked and made you guys go, yeah, this guy's one of us.
Well, we saw his photos, number one, and if, I think I even say in the book that we had been approached. Our manager at the time was the boys' dad, and he said they've got somebody from the Star Telegram coming down to shoot some pictures, and we go, huh, cool. And at the same time, it was a big deal, but we never let big deals turn into big deals, because you're just setting yourself up for a fall, So when he came back, this is 85. This is 30 freaking years ago. So I'm trying to remember. I remember the backstage because of seeing the pictures, and I remember that they had like a whole makeup room back in those days, with the big stage, lights and like the ones you see in the old Kiss pictures and stuff. And so we were sitting there, and I think Joe had come in and just started going to town. I think we first had our first, hey man, what's happening kind of deal. It was just kind of, make yourself at home, I think was what it was, and that because he was doing a special for the Star Telegram was a big, huge newspaper back then. We were like, well, do what you got to do, man. And then from there, it grew into this friendship. I don't remember if it was me and you that brought that had the friendship, or it was Vinny. I can't remember.
It was me and you and me and Glaze pretty much were there at the beginning.
Exactly.
Terry, this was when Terry Glaze, Terrence Lee was in the band before Phil joined.
More intellectual than the other.
But yeah, they opened up their dressing room and kind of said, hey, what's going on? And I'd already seen the band play live at the various clubs in Dallas, so that's why I grabbed for that assignment when I saw that it was something to shoot for the newspaper. And I'd been a fan from '83 onward until I actually did the shoot. And knowing how good the band was musically, when I went back to start taking pictures, it wasn't like I just wanted them to be natural. And the first picture I think I remember taking is Dime just sitting there warming up and just looking at me and just, throwing all sorts of poses and shapes. And it just, and he knew he already had it. He already knew what to do in front of the camera. And it was just fabulous. I didn't have to say anything. He didn't have to say anything to me. It was just a natural, organic thing, and just, started taking pictures.
Then we saw the photos, and from there it just went, okay, well, hell, he's coming.
Yeah, I got to get him back.
We need a guy to chronicle everything. I think every band does, or they've had one, that chronicles every little step of their career. And Joe, as we got better, so did his craft, and that was what was really good. It just, I don't think just anybody can take some of the shots, say like Joe can, on that professional level does, and just with any craft, you get better and better the more you do it, the more experience.
Absolutely.
And I think that was a sort of a factor in terms of their career and my career were sort of taken up, because from being a newspaper photographer is great, but I always knew I wanted to be a music photographer, a freelancer, doing the type of pictures that I used to hang on my wall and the posters, from all these other photographers,
right.
Preston, Bob Gruen, that type of stuff. And so our careers, as they were taken up professionally, writing better music and getting more attention and eventually a major label deal, I was kind of moving away from newspapers, freelancing a lot more for music magazines and starting to do a lot of their contemporaries, photograph a lot of the other bands that were being signed at the time and stuff.
Plus, Joe had a lot more contacts than we did. So, it's kind of nice. He was kind of our ambassador, abroad when he started taking photos, when he got recognized by the, the Kerangs and stuff like that. And kind of, they really didn't have a guy in the States that they used a lot. There was, I think it was maybe you and one other, maybe Eddie.
I think there was somebody here in New York that did some work in that time.
Somebody like that. Yeah, but there wasn't a whole lot. There was only a couple people here in the States that took pictures of what was happening here. Everything else in those magazines were, old Saxon pictures or whatever,
Iron Maiden, Saxon.
Or Def Leppard at
or
the
Def
time,
Leppard,
because that was Power Maiden had just come out. So it it put us into, well, now we're talking to big guys, and because of the phony, looks and all that kind of stuff, I think they overlooked the music.
And I think one thing that's really interesting that you said is that you think every band should document their career. And what's great about this book is that it documents the part of your career, one, a lot of people flat out don't even know about, which we're talking about the glam era. A lot of people think that Cowboys is the actual first album, but it gives a huge perspective on a side that not a lot of people really get to see because that era of Pantera has largely been ignored.
One guy in the band didn't want these photos to come out at all. It was just not for it. But
Not at all. Who was that?
one of the other two guys, not me.
Fair enough. So we were looking through a little bit of the photos before we started the podcast here. And one thing that we're talking about is if you're listening to this on YouTube and you've drifted, now's the time to bring this back up in your browser and look, because you can see some of these images. And here's one of a giant crowd, and you're saying some brothers up front, and they're holding up Pantera license plates, Far Beyond 1 and Pantera 1. And what's the story behind this one right here?
It was obviously a show in Illinois. I don't think it was in Chicago. It might have been in Springfield. But we didn't know they were brothers, actually, until the book came out, and they actually contacted my publisher, Jacob, on Facebook and said, hey, you've got that's us in there. And they kind of told us the whole story of
They're
who
a
they
handsome
were.
bunch of fellas.
And they actually spoke about the mullets and stuff like that, actually, I believe, in the post. But it was just, guys going nuts with license plates, and that's, very interesting. You don't always see people with license plates of their favorite band and bringing them to the show and stuff, and they were just going nuts. It was right before Pantera was going to take the stage, and they were just up there going nuts. I said, just hold those up, and they did, and then,
I want to say that's Dayton.
But they're in Illinois, though, so that would have been Ohio. But it could be Dayton.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
I thought
Somewhere
maybe it
in
was
the
like
Midwest.
Springfield or something like that. Yeah, not specifically Chicago. It could have been Chicago, but I mean, all the
just
tourists
trying
just
to
run
see the
together so much.
I used to look at the ceilings a lot.
So, Rex, these people brought Pantera license plates. I mean, you've got a band where people are making their own license plates after. What's the weirdest thing somebody's brought you, kind of like a custom, like Pantera type thing?
Prosthetic leg.
Really?
Yeah. Or a wheelchair. And we were more than obliged,
So that's laying around somewhere?
No, we'd give it back to them. We'd
okay.
it up right there on stage, Dude, it was insane. All the stuff that used to come flying out on that stage. I mean, dude, there was just, hell, I'd probably a quarter pound of weed just sitting there on the deck from people throwing it up. I'm dead ass serious,
I mean, we got a guitar player named Dimebag. Why not, right?
I mean, yeah, it was nuts. I don't remember. It wouldn't, yeah.
There's some pictures, actually, if you go towards the White Zombie stuff.
Oh, yeah, those are great.
Where the guy actually showed up in that costume, sort of a deer head or something.
Yeah.
And that was probably, that's a little too, well, yeah, you're getting
right
close.
here.
Yeah. But now look for the shot of Dimebag and the band. Keep going. I believe it's in that general area. Yeah, that's the one. That's what I'm talking about. But anyway, this guy just showed up in this outfit with skeleton hands and a deer outfit. And of course, once Dime saw it, he had to bring that guy in for a photo shoot because it was just like so crazy.
It's Little Al from New Orleans.
Was that who that was? Okay.
He was working for, I think, because
yeah, there he is.
God was that's Alan in New Orleans.
No, I mean, for me, there we go. That was like the weird, one of the weirdest things that either came to a show or was thrown on stage or whatever.
Now, another one that we're talking about here is just kind of passed out on the floor of the airport.
Oh, yeah, he just dropped trow anywhere.
I'm telling you, that New Zealand and Australia run was just insane. That was the first time that the band had been over there, and those people over there can party, let me tell you. And it was essentially that. There was no tour bus, so we were traveling from town to town via airplane, and so showing up at the airports was sometimes very
After
tough.
the show, we go hit the bar at the hotels. I remember, I don't know if necessarily the fans were there, wasn't that packed, but I remember guys would just stand up and piss right there on the, just right next to you, and I'd feel a splash on my leg, and I go, "What the fuck are you doing, man?" And big old rugby fella, and I didn't say much else after that.
Right.
I think we all started doing it after that. I had, like, this feels like Texas. Shit.
Remember walking into that club we went to in in Dublin, Ireland, and just seeing literally like about 30 people just passed out. They had partied so much. And, in America, they would, cart you out, you're out of here, buddy. But there we walked into this rock club and people were literally
leave them where they lie.
Yeah, exactly.
And now, Rex, this is one of my favorite pictures in the book. It shows everybody sitting on a bench, and then you're kind of distanced from everyone else. And I think it kind of personifies how you were in the band, where you weren't always out in the forefront, and you kind of like to keep to yourself a little bit more.
I like that.
So what do you have to say about this picture? Wearing a Dallas Cowboys shirt, too.
It wasn't planned on that. I just kind of sat down and looked away. I think the reason that picture comes across that way is because I'm looking the other way. I think
Definitely.
we had a discussion before that was taken that maybe I was still thinking about. But
so this is more of a candid
that's the way
shot?
I've always been. Look, to me, it wasn't about the glamour and all the crap. It was about the music, And I just, as a bass player, I just didn't. I waited, man. I waited. I'm still waiting.
Still
Y'all
waiting.
can ask me these questions. Keep the legacy alive.
Yeah, that was just a natural shot. We never, ever essentially posed anything or said, you stand here, you stand there. If the band came together, that's the way we're going to shoot it. And
I think
when we
Philip
got this
farted or
location,
something. I think I can't. Philip farted, and I just kind of moved over and said, "Not cool, dude."
yeah, and essentially they just sat there like that, and we just started shooting. I didn't have to direct this band much. There's some bands where you had to tell people how to look or chin up or chin down or look this way or that way. But with Pantera, it was just all just capture the moment.
Capture the candid spirit. Now, let's go into a little bit of rocker versus writer here. So we've talked about a lot of cool topics before on the podcast, and today's topic is going to be the best rock metal bassist of all time. Of course, so come on, are you going to make us argue against you being the best bassist? That wouldn't be too good. So Rex, who is your pick for the best bassist?
Geezer Butler.
Geezer Butler and Joe.
If it's just metal, I'd say Geezer, but if it's rock, I'd say Geddy Lee.
Geddy Lee. Yeah. Hard to mess with Geddy Lee.
Yeah, John Paul Jones. I mean, metal, those two guys formed a path. Also Jack Bruce. There's a ton of them.
There's a lot of good guys. My pick is going to be, no surprise to anybody who's listened to this podcast before, Steve Harris. Huge Maiden fan, so how can I go with Steve Harris? But Rex, why do you like Geezer so much?
Because Geezer is one of those kind of fellows that stays in the background and is mysterious, and he also wrote a lot of those riffs, and he wrote all the damn lyrics.
Mm-hmm.
It was his band. And I still, I saw Geezer a couple of months ago, and it was great because his tech called me. He goes, "Man, you got to come up and play. We just put the new rig together." And so I got to go up and play on my Heroes fucking almighty rig that this company I can't say it for contractual things. So anyway, I got to get up and play on his basses, man, and it's by far. And I played on every rig that Geezer's played on since '98.
Wow.
Literally. So and this one was just, oh my God, dude! I took pictures of it. It's just insane, man.
I mean, I'm not supposed to be taking your side here, but
Geezer's
tone sounds like
we had a chance to go, hang out. But when you're playing shows and stuff, especially those guys at that age, they have a certain routine, and so he kept bringing me back. Well, that picture didn't let's take another one, and then he blasted me all over the Sabbath Twitter and all over the pages and stuff, and that was really, really cool. So yeah, that's why Geezer's my favorite.
Yeah, his bass tone is
the
just
coolest dude ever.
Crack foundations. So I'm not supposed to be taking your side here, but I can't ignore that part.
And he's the coolest that you ever met in your life.
So what's your why do you think Geddy Lee's the best bassist, Joe?
His versatility. I mean, not only playing the bass, but just his musicianship, being able to sing, do bass pedals, do keyboards.
He's his own power trio.
Exactly. Pretty. Yeah. That's a good way of putting it.
But Geddy put it all together, though. I mean, the vocals and everything, the synthesizer, all that stuff. I mean, he was the main composer. They all shared their duties, but he had a huge plate, and he chewed it all.
And just laying the foundation for that music. I mean, behind Alex's guitar, just he it was so chugging, and so it drove the song and the songs, and just
real complementary
really,
roles.
Yeah.
And what I like about Steve Harris is, I mean, there's the gallop and metal, that whole thing, but he just sounds so much different than everybody else and the way that he does his runs. And then one thing that I really like is the way that he brushes his fingers down and actually plays chords a little bit, kind of like a guitar. He doesn't do it all the time, but it's only when it's exactly like as needed. So just a little bit at the end of a measure or something, and just boom, and just that little bit of power.
I'm amazed at the speed, that
Yeah,
Harris
he
plays.
is really, and you think it's 3 fingers? It's only 2.
Yeah, he's insane. And then he doesn't even have like a volume or a tone knob on his bass.
Frank Bello, well,
What about Frank Bello?
Well, about the 3 finger, everybody thinks that 3 finger is a gallop with 3 on it. It's actually 2 fingers.
Just 2.
I thought that Rex was actually going to say that I was his best bass player.
Absolutely.
Because during the club days and on Sundays, the nights when not as many people were there, the band would, on like the last set, I was a crappy bass player myself, and they'd pull me up there on stage and let me play "Walking the Dog" by it wasn't Aerosmith song, but they covered it, and so we'd get up there and I'd play "Walking the Dog."
Now sing it
once every month or two, and that was my actually being on the stage and being the fifth member.
That's right.
Part of my history with Pantera.
That was funny. I think I played Glazer's guitar and sang that one.
Right.
Didn't
I think so. I believe so, yeah.
Did you ever take the pictures instead?
No, Joe was he was on stage.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think anybody. I think there's probably a couple. But,
I've seen a few.
Yeah, but I don't think I've ever seen them actually. But we'll let this somehow dig those out.
So let's bring this back around to you, Rex. What's your favorite kind of Geezer moment with his playing? Is there a favorite song that you have that he's done?
Fairies for Boots. I mean, that song.
I know picking Black
so
Sabbath songs
insane.
is impossible.
It's just you can't pick one from the other. I got the chance to 2 or 3 years ago. They bass player live, which I'm heavily do every year with those cats, and they had where everybody got they give them a lifetime achievement award, and so they invited me to come down and play a song, so I played Hole in the Sky and just tore it up, so I'm standing there, and he walks down to come accept his award, and he's in a suit. I've never seen Geezer in a suit before, and him and his wife, and he gives me the biggest hug and embrace, because he's not one of those kind of gents. He just very formal handshake, very British gentleman type, and he just gives me this biggest hug and kiss on the cheek, and you just don't. That's it. You're finished. Your job is done. After that just happens, and that's all I could think of for the next 2 days. Did that really happen? He laid the groundwork for so many people. He laid, both on the bass and lyrically, and also just an incredible human being. So
it's hard to argue against Geezer Butler, and hard to argue against Geddy Lee, hard to argue against Steve Harris. So we're going to call it, that's it for Rocker versus Writer for this time. Now, let's go. We talked a lot about the past. Let's talk about the future. Rex, you've got a solo album coming out.
Sure do.
What could you tell us about this?
It's rock and roll.
It's rock and roll.
And it's me singing. I went to Nashville last summer, and I had a friend that was living there. His name's Lance Harville, and this guy writes just incredible songs, and he's a great guitar player. And together we had he had some tunes that I liked, and so we started working on it. Some were just like little parts, and then I'd bring a part to the song or whatever. I rewrote lyrics or whatever. But we co-wrote all of these see, it's going to be 11 songs on the record, I think. We have some others, but it was just the chemistry there is kind of like it's a little oil and vinegar.
Interesting.
Me coming in and singing some of this stuff, and he would have some guidelines, and then I would change them, and so very, very much a partnership, and for me to go and sing the first time, man, I was just scared to death, trying to find that voice. And there was this one song that he had in particular. It's off the cuff, man, but I really, really worked at the song to find that voice. And once I found it, then everything else
freed everything else.
Then
up.
everything else fit into place. You know what I'm saying? So I would go down and we would work on these 4 songs, and I'd go back home, and then. Or first, we laid 11 basic tracks, and then from there I would come back, and then we'd start singing on these. So some of these had the original vocals on them, and then some of them I've retouched and redone. But we just finished, October 20th, and so since then we've mixed it about 18 times, and I can't listen to it anymore. But
need to step away from it for a little.
It harkens back to, my love of 70s hard rock.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like when we were in the studio, you put that Aerosmith poster behind you.
It harkens back to all those influences that I had before that. But it also has this, I know somebody's already used this, and I had this phrase for a long time. It's more of a modern vintage sound. That's what I wanted to kind of go with. You can take the boy out of the farm, but the farm.
Can't take the farm out of the boy.
Right.
Yeah.
And so it still has that kind of attack to it, but it, the 70s, there were some great hard rock songs that were catchy, and for me, it's all about the song and the groove and the accessibility to it. And
that one hook moment.
Corny, there's a way that you can do it where it's not, It's not, and Lance helped me, and also had an extraordinary drummer, Christopher Williams, who he's played with. Man, this guy's played with just about everybody. He plays with Accept now, and I got he introduced me into Caleb Sherman, who is a producer implant from here to Nashville, and he just makes these incredible records. Man, this chemistry that we have is just undeniable. It's what I've been wanting to do for a long time. I want to say this record should have came out 5 or 10 years ago, but now's now.
You're a busy guy,
and here it is. Well, of course, but this is just something I'm really passionate about, something I'm really proud of, and it is what it is, man. I don't care if people love it or hate it, but they're gonna hear it. I'm damn sure not gonna shelve it just for.
They are gonna hear it. You got a little
because it's. I haven't felt strongly about some of the material that I've done in a long time, and this, I got to a point 2 years ago where I just didn't want to play another note. I just got done with the
needed to put everything down
and all that. I had to go live life a little bit. I had to watch my kids grow. I had to, my relationship, and I got engaged, and just while I was doing this record, we bought a home and completely just stripped the whole house, knocked walls out, and did everything in about 3.5 months, and put, it's an incredible ranch style kind of contemporary home in Albuquerque. But I'm just blessed with some great talent on this record, and also just grateful for everything that's happened here in the last couple. I had to get that, man. I was burnt out. 25 years on that silver tube is enough.
All right. Well, stay tuned for that snippet for a sample of new Rex Brown solo material. I want to thank you guys so much for sitting down, coming on the podcast. Rex, Joe, it's been great having you guys here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, bud.
All right, there we have it. Another Loudwire podcast in the books. I guess, no, in the books makes sense. We talked about the photo book. I don't really know why they say in the books anymore. Everything's digitized. Anyway, so that was a lot of fun. And I think it was really cool getting Joe's aspect of everything, because it's one thing to be in the band, and it's another thing to kind of be that fifth member who observes everything from, I guess, wait for the pun here, a little bit of a different lens than everybody else. So we got some cool stories, especially with somebody giving them the prosthetic leg and the wheelchair. Some really strange stuff. Glad they gave it back, though. That would probably not have ended too well. And then, of course, how about that surprise at the end? A little bit of music from Rex Brown there. Some sample from the solo album. He said it was going to be a little more rock-related, going back to his roots early. So that's a little preview of that. Super excited that he gave us that. That was very nice of him. And we did a lot of stuff when they were in here. So if you love Wikipedia Fact or Fiction and you haven't seen it yet, we've got one out right now with Rex Brown dispelling a bunch of Wikipedia. No surprise there. I got to host my first Wikipedia segment since Graham wasn't here. So be nice to me, please. Or you could be mean. Whatever. It doesn't matter. If you miss Graham, hey, I guess that's a good thing. He's pretty good. So anyway, that's the end of this podcast. Definitely make sure you head to loudwire.com for all of your rock and metal news. Bunch of lists. Always doing a lot of fun stuff. And then follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, on Facebook. Follow me on Twitter at Ice Nerve Shatter. It's a Godflesh song. If you're listening again, thank you. And if you're listening again, you already know it's a Godflesh song. Even though he's not here, go ahead, follow Graham. He's at Graham Wire. Pretty good. I don't know, I just didn't feel like Joe Wire had the same ring to it. Anyway, that does it for this time. Graham's not here, so maybe we'll play some Duke in another time. Do it.